All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Foxtrotting in the Foxhole, Season 10, Episode 18, number 306 overall. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan, coming to you live on a Saturday again from Eagle's Nest to Studio B. Indeed. Always a shout out to the folks at Rode, Zoom, and other cool folks that makes wonderful tools for content creation. Want to be on the podcast or Aftershocks, the web series that's the companion to this? Send me an email, ftinfx@gmail.com, or you can call the hotline 541-525-0896. So what do we got going on this fine Saturday? I'm sitting over here to my right watching a little PSG in Nice. PSG on the road looking to get back on the penthouse in League One. That's going well if you're a PSG fan, which you know I am. Got the hoops on, MLS. Yeah, it's a great sprinkling of stuff. Anyways, let's get cracking here with episode 306 coming right at you, open face. Well, darn, man, this is, a lot of sadness to go around this week as far as losing people. And, obviously Chuck Norris, going back with me as far as Bruce Lee movies and Good Guys Wear Black and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, truly iconic for his movies, his stunts, his personality, the memes, and definitely had a third and fourth act. It will definitely be missed. We are going to send out our condolences to his peeps and all fans alike who are all going to mourn his passing. Chuck Norris, I know. The one thing he couldn't beat in the end, death. Okay. If you watched my Aftershocks episode, which I believe was 36, which I dropped midweek, I had a segment about America the Beautiful, tying in the World Cup and the World Baseball Classic and all this other stuff. Anyways, there's great conversation going on as far as the whole war analogies and tying them with sport. And one of the things I didn't realize was that apparently, what game was it? Must have been the Dominican Republic game, where they brought in one of the Navy SEALs that was on the team that took out Osama bin Laden for a pep talk. Yeah, it kind of angered some folks, but there was just so much going on. It was quickly dampened before it could become a major talking point. But I sit there and thought, boy, this is just an interesting week when you can see something like that. The OKC's not going to the White House because of a scheduling conflict. Interesting times we live in as far as the American landscape is concerned. All right. A lot of media this week. And this is one of those that I'm just kind of laughing. I'm like, why didn't it happen before? But, the NFL Network, which is going to be commingled with ESPN quicker than you can say Burt Jones, they're going to show some UFL games. And I was thinking, well, UFL's a developmental league, and you should be trying to get that on as many screens as possible to get eyeballs. Why wasn't this happening from the inception, I guess, is the question I really want to have when it comes to that. And we'll see if this league can get some more eyeballs in this latest iteration, which will be starting at the end of the month. Yeah. And all kinds of tremors going on in the media this week. You have CBS basically shuttering its radio division after a century. I'm not sure what impacts this is going to have quite yet as far as sports is concerned, but you'd have to think all the wide spread changes that what's her name is just trying to institute over there and what you've seen at the Washington Post. Yeah, is AI just going to do everything, or we just get our content from YouTube? Who knows? A lot of competition out there, no question about that. It's in the interesting times that we're living in, there's having a filter and then there's not having a filter. And I guess at some point, when you're with a certain someone, you can get away with saying anything out of your mouth. And this would be, the well-traveled Ron Duguay, NHL edge, who happens to be dating Sarah Palin. I guess he came out on a tweet about the Rangers, because he played for the Rangers at one point, Pride Night. They were playing the Kings, and he said, I knew they were going to lose even before the match started. I just went, wow, you're going there. And they did lose 4-1, which made him look really smart. Wow. PSG scored again, but of course, oh, well, wait a minute, it's offside. Well, no, it actually is a goal. 3-0, but Nice is down a man. Complete dumpster fire for them right now. But yeah, I can't believe Ron Duguay, he went there. It's just like, wow, man. One more side of the wild times we're living in, and it's not even June yet. And then we've got the judge that we knew this was going to happen, but the judge confirmed what we knew all along when it came to the ridiculous lawsuit that Mark Gastineau was trying to throw at ESPN, because ESPN made him look stupid in terms of that bitch move he did with Brett Favre as far as the sack record concerns. But then after seeing what we saw with Myles Garrett, everything does go full circle at times, right? And I said this has been a very interesting week. You got Cam Newton. Yeah, that Cam Newton. And Mr. Whitlock breaking bread and having a meeting of the minds. I didn't watch it. And the reason why I didn't watch it, I know there's a lot of talk, but what I've been saying on here for weeks with these people and the supposed beefs that they have, it's like, okay, you hate each other and you say this inflammatory thing, but really all are just manufacturing clicks for all of your platforms. Even if it isn't that way in reality, it sure does seem that way. And I'm not being cynical either. I'm thinking, okay, you two aligning your views or agreeing to disagree, and all of a sudden it's all cool. Because, hey, you wanted to go to Nashville, this is Cam Newton, and go find him and rumble. You and that gangster Joy Taylor. Boy, I didn't have that on my scorecard for 2026, that's for damn sure. Let's see here. Kudos and props to longtime LA and San Francisco sports columnist Scott Ostler, calling it a career so we can just go chill and sit on the porch and watch the sunrises and sunsets. Good for him. Been reading his stuff for a long time, going back to the days when he was on the Lakers beat back in the 80s. Yeah. Okay, we talked about the whole nonsense with Hawks fans showing up to the venue with Magic City gear. Talked about that at Aftershocks. The culture, always trying to push back. Then there's Bishop Gorman, the Vegas high school that has long been a powerhouse, a national powerhouse. So much to the effect that a lot of the schools in Clark County are finding ways so they don't have to play Bishop Gorman anymore. And pretty much Bishop Gorman getting blackballed by all the schools in Clark County. Wow. Your success is making it so you're probably going to have to play some weird schedule where you're traveling to Cali all the time. True stuff. Okay, let's go to the culture for a minute. Yes, we survived another Oscar rotation without losing too much of our intelligence. It's a total crap fest. I was hoping to talk with SJ about that, but our little episode last night got a little sidetracked. It's been a crazy, week, 8-9 days. This whole thing with Jasmine Crockett and her bodyguard out there trying to be law enforcement and thug life at the same time, I guess. Or maybe he got lit up in suspicious circumstances to send her a message, according to the Oliver Stoneites in that world. Yeah, that's a hell of a conspiracy, y'all. You guys have got way too much time on your hands, but nonetheless, another interesting story and a week full of them. You got Michelle Tafoya. Yeah, that Michelle Tafoya. Trying to run for senator in Minnesota, of all places, on the right side of the equation. And I don't mean right side of the equation, but, there's the right and left, that right and left sort of thing. And talking about, rising energy prices, she pulled her Marie Antoinette and basically said, telling everybody to have one less trip to Starbucks. Needless to say, your ass is not going to be getting elected come November. And if it is in that state, that would be truly an upset to end all upsets. And what is the deal with this, the couple that got busted at the Coldplay concert? She got to do another lap around the building to explain herself, so she gets another 15 minutes. Just like Hawk Tua girl got implants, so she could get another 15 minutes. Oh, man. And don't even get me started with Cesar Chavez. As somebody who grew up in California, worked in agribusiness, and has been, part of that world that he was part of, to see him fall from grace like this, I don't know if I've ever seen an icon get torn down this quickly. It's just amazing how things reversed as far as that goes. Wow, okay, we're off and running with episode 306. When we return, we will talk what's going on campus. See you momentarily. All right, then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Episode 306. Watching a little PSG. That goal was disallowed, but they scored another one, so it's still 3-0. Nice playing down a man. All right, let's get the homies and homettes together. It's late enough in the afternoon that they can wake up from their Saturday or Friday night revelries. Let's get our Uber, get down to the Eugene airport where we can boogie on through TSA, fist bumping and high-fiving all the way till we get to the tarmac where our shimmering Gulfstream G650 awaits us, where it's going to take us to our cruising altitude of 43,000 feet so we can take the high view above the campuses of America. Obviously, it being tournament time, and that's always exciting. I spoke about this the other day on Aftershocks 036. What Fran Michella said about schools being able to dump unprotected players. And you sit there and watch and think any of these schools, especially when you're talking like Wisconsin, North Carolina, the Buckeyes, Georgia, and BYU, all suffering disappointing losses in the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament, you have to sit there and wonder. Half the roster is going to probably bolt for their own reasons. But what if we were living in a world where you could just sit there and pull out the spreadsheet and be like, Mr. Friedman of the Dodgers and be like, oh no, this isn't going to be good enough. Write them an NIL check and tell them to get the F out. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we have the Red Hawks. That was quite the controversy. We talked about that also in episode 36. No problem them being in the first four. I mean, I think some people were kind of butthurt that they felt like they were punished, but they handled their business and beat SMU. And then reality sank in once the tournament began. And it was like a great story for a couple of minutes, but we're going to forget the Red Hawks were 31-0 at one point. Sadly for them, but that's just the way it goes when you get bounced early. And gee, I think PSG just scored again. Oof, that goal differential, it matters, especially when you got a game in hand. Yeah, I mean, this was interesting. I love once we get past all the crying. And I thought this year it was pretty minimal. You have to think the selection committee for the most part got it right. There's, we talk about a team like Auburn or some of these other schools they were horrible. That's not really even an issue. And obviously on Saturday, day 3 of the tournament, all that's like 800 miles in the rearview mirror in terms of people being pissed off about it, and that's a good thing. The crying game is over, and we're focusing on whatever good stories there are, and there are plenty. At schools like High Point pulling off major upsets. Like I said, this whole story in Carolina, pretty much, right? If you're not simping for Duke on ESPN or the other networks, or simping for Carolina, and you get the feeling Hubert Davis's days may not be long in this world where you have bloated rosters and a blue blood brand. Yeah, we'll see what happens in Chapel Hill here real quick. Maybe reach out to our friend and see what his pulse is as far as that program is concerned. Not good. Let's see here. What else do we have here that's kind of interesting to me this week? Before I get to that, yeah. How about the New York University ladies? They're Division 3. And I didn't know this until the 91 game winning streak that they were on coming to an end. And this is in the Division 3 Final Four. And I was thinking, y'all won 91 games, even at that level, and no one really was talking to you about this until they lost? Shame on all of us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see here. Don't know too much about what's going on as far as the D1 ladies bracket yet. I mean, there's been no earth-shaking upsets. Good for Kelly Graves getting a win yesterday because, we've knocked him off the left field wall of the Foxhole many times as far as Oregon not living up to what it possibly should be doing. Gives them, the facilities and the NIL budgets and whatnot. But good for him. Hopefully they stick around and make it to the Sweet 16. Oh my goodness. It was kind of interesting. I talked about this also on the last Aftershocks. Doug Gottlieb going on Whitlock Show and a few other places, and just really laying into the Jay Billises of the world, especially Jay Billis, but ESPN and it's Duke simping. But I thought it was interesting his take on Jay Billis in terms of that Jay Billis has been Mr. Player Empowerment. Let him get paid, but that whole PIL song was again, this is what you want, this is what you get. And Doug thinks Jay's gotten a little bitter because, I spoke up for this, but this is complete BS is what college basketball's turned into. And I just thought, well, I'm glad somebody sees that. Oh, you old curmudgeons, blah, 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 always screaming and yelling. Back in my day. Nonetheless, because we talked also this week, kind of bouncing around all over the place. We talked earlier this week about the whole Matt Leinart thing, and I've gotten some more feedback from some coaches and former players who are completely down with it. I thought Sean Salisbury's take was really interesting. This is Matt Leinart basically saying, I'm not giving my jersey up to some mercenary, or I'm retiring my jersey because, anybody at SC wins a Heisman, they're going to retire your jersey. But, the mercenary culture where you're there for 5 minutes, and I like that. Or why didn't Sean Salisbury saying, well, just like we do in the pros, you want the number, where's the cash? You got NIL money, you can hook a brother up. Only 2026 can we be having conversations like this. And in 2026, only in Utah, where it's Utah Tech, but at one point it was Dixie State, and apparently in their bookstore, they have brought back retro Dixie State gear, which makes me wonder how long will it be before UNLV's bookstore brings Hey Red back in a retro. It's an interesting thing here because I've got to walk as a slippery slope for me, after everything I've gone through with this whole Redskins name thing. When we start getting into some of these Confederate icons, whether it's Rebels or Dixie, and the culture immediately gets a little bit bent out of shape. After all, that's where you don't have a civil war anymore because we had some players that felt it made them think of slavery and injustice, and that's why the game shouldn't be called that. So I'm not going to yell at Dixie State for selling some gear. Of course, the old heads are like, yeah, dude, we need to bring it back. Because, once you get the kettle going with those folks. But yeah, I think that's just hilarious. Okay, what else do we have? Okay, I guess the NCAA, that NCAA, they're going to do a little trial this year and basically amend the targeting rule. Because, now you have to miss a half when you get booted. But I think what they're saying now, you can have one targeting violation. Then the second one, you get tossed and miss a half. I think that's pretty fair, right? Unless it's really something, malicious where you are doing some Vontaze Burkett kind of stuff. And I think that's fairly reasonable, kind of getting some input and seeing something that could be fixed and try out and see how it works. I think it's something that will stick. I also think it's interesting about former players that are connected. Speaking of the Tar Heels that are connected with that program, what's the guy, Marquise? I forget what his name is. But nobody wants to have anything to do with the program just because of Bill, and I'm guessing, Jordan, who's out there bragging about making money in cheerleading contests, calling it the gold digger winning. Wow. Yeah, I would imagine if I was part of that program, a proud player that played under Mac Brown, I wouldn't want to be associated with this nonsense either. All right, folks. Well, we'll have plenty to say about what's going to happen in the Sweet 16 and all that good stuff in the next aftershocks, and do a good wrap-up tournament weekend as the games are still in progress for the weekend. And some other wonderful stuff, because there's always mayhem on campus. Okay, we're going to land the Gulfstream G650, get back to the studio, and we'll come back with something you should probably know when we return. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here, smiling away as PSG comes away with a 4-0 win on the road at Nice. You're back in first with the game in hand. All good there. Enjoy the flight back to Paris, gentlemen. Okay, let's go with one of our favorite segments of the Foxtrotting and a Foxhole podcast. Call this Something You Should Probably Know. What is it? Something you should probably know, or things that happened this past week in the world of sports you might want to know or even care about. Yeah, I know it's on a Saturday. We're out of sync. We're all over the place. Thanks for putting up with me as always. How about F1? A lot going on here. I mean, obviously, give the Foxhole and its conversation with the corner man, mentioning Kimi Antonelli. He willed it into existence with Kimi Antonelli winning the China Grand Prix, with Mercedes going 1-2 again, and Lewis Hamilton posting a very impressive third. But the major news is on that circuit would be F1 canceling races in Bahrain and Saudi, citing safety concerns with the ongoing conflict that's been escalating in the Midwest now for Midwest, the Mideast. Probably now, what? We're going on 3 weeks on that? 2 weeks? Anyways, that's kind of a bummer, along with the stuff with Iran, but I'll mention that in the Beautiful Game Life. But it's kind of a bummer that there are going to be 2 races that are not going to happen over there, but maybe they'll figure out a way to get something else on the calendar. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Over in Indy, you had Kyle Kirkwood winning on the streets of Arlington, which was kind of interesting because the corner man mentioned him as well. I'll tell you, Jim's on his stuff, man. It was very good as far as that goes. Obviously, talked the other day about NASCAR, and oh my, the culture didn't win again last week, and nobody's flocking to NASCAR in masses because Jordan wins everything he touches. That's not really a story this week, and we're happy about that. I would say a lot to talk about in the golf world, as I mentioned the other day on Aftershocks. I mean, Bryson's leading again in this tour that just makes no sense other than there were just big fat bags of cash. And, you're just basically taking money and setting it on fire as far as that goes. I mean, we spoke at great length about what happened at the Players and all the fun there, which still cements the PGA as the tour to watch. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to come up with that conclusion. Just now, we're biding our time, waiting for Augusta, which is, you can hear the theme from Augusta playing really faintly in the distance as far as all the hype leading up to that. Tiger keeps dropping breadcrumbs. So I think he's going to play. He's going to show up and try. I don't think he'll make a dent given all of the surgeries and everything that his body has went through. If he can even get through 36 holes, but I do think he's going to make a go at it. And I think that's great for the eyeballs, the viewership, and just going to enhance the event having him, try to make a go at it. So fingers crossed there. Definitely never complain about good storylines as far as this segment and golf in general is concerned. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the ring. We like to flip things around here, and I love this when somebody asked a real hardcore question. Get away from the weirdos that seem to gleam to Steve Kim's, the Korean Kosel, who is a pretty prominent fight commentator as well. Those folks who actually know what's going on in the sport, they don't count. But I think the rest of us, how do you sell this Pacquiao-Merriweather fight? Other than, 2 geriatrics beating the crap out of each other, and we want to see that for the freak show that it might be. But otherwise, I don't know what would be the angle, right? Because you don't have to market it to the boxing sickos. They're going to watch anything, right? They're watching stuff on the Spanish channels, whatever they can do to catch a fighter. They even have a DAZN subscription. DAZN. Oh, man. I don't know, man. I just have to wonder what is going to be, the impetus for you in terms of buying this fight on pay-per-view, or is it, I don't know what platform. Is it going to be on Netflix? I'm not sure as far as that's concerned. Sad state of affairs, isn't it? I mean, I love this one too. This is no surprise either. We see that Jake Paul is going to be sidelined probably through the beginning of 2027. Still recovering from that ass whooping he took from Mr. Joshua. We got to ask. Should he ever step into the ring again after getting his string knocked loose like that? I know I wouldn't, but then again, he lives in a world for clicks and, it helps his brand. But I think this whole thing, challenging the UFC, which Ronda Rousey's kind of saying, hey, we're going to take down the UFC and I'm bigger than anything that's going on over there right now. And I'm more curious to see how much is it hot air or is there some real smoke and fire to what Ronda is saying? Because that's way more intriguing than the idea of seeing Jake Paul get hammered again, especially if he's going to fight somebody legit. Then you've got Clarissa Shields talking all crazy, going at it with Uncle Shay Shay and those and Uncle and Ocho Cinco talking about men she could beat, and it's just like, come on, man, stop it. Stop it. I mean, this would be worse than what was going to happen to Jake Paul, man, and then the culture would really freak out about letting it happen. Come on, stop talking crazy, lady. Speaking of crazy, Dennis Rodman getting inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame. He was like talking on social media this week about being in two different Hall of Fames now, and I'm thinking, it's bad enough you're in the Basketball Hall of Fame, which anybody that has a pulse gets into, but now wrestling says, hey, come on, Dennis, you made a fool of yourself a couple of times. Another one of those, make it make sense for me if you can. Okay. Then we got our girl, Lindsey Vonn. Yeah. People are talking about how it's pretty much curtains for her career and her pushing back. She's tweeting the hell out of social media because she didn't have her moment the way she thought it would be. But she's letting people know when it's the end, I decide it's over. Not you, not the media. I decide. And I haven't made my mind up. I'm still fighting to get back to what I do. Yeah, Lindsay, she ain't gonna go out like that. Oh, man. It's also kind of funny, with the Winter Olympics now in the rearview mirror. We had the World Baseball Classic and things like that. So, that small window where we take these people who excel in the sports that are in the Winter Olympics and try to make them into personalities, and then it fades away quicker than you can say Susie Favor Hamilton, the runner that turned into an escort. But yeah, I just always amazed that because that one, she's a Cali girl. She's I forget. She's got like the orange dyed hair or whatever the case is. They've been really trying to push her, but nobody's really buying into it. And I think it's kind of interesting always in terms of these athletes, in the Olympics, both winter and summer, how they have their 5 minutes and then we throw them back into the the attic until that cycle repeats itself. Yeah, pretty cynical world we're in, isn't it? All right, folks, we're clicking the hills and banging the drums and the pots and all kinds of other stuff. We will be back and talk some NBA and some other stuff momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Faithfulness, Ken Harlan here, episode 306, season 10, episode 18 overall. Alrighty, let's do the NBA beat. A lot going on there. The expansion talks really have heated up over the last couple of weeks. As I said on Aftershocks 036 the other day, the biggest blue ball tease probably in NBA history as far as when this announcement's actually going to happen. I just think it's interesting as far as this debate about expansion, because we've thought for many, many years now that Seattle and Las Vegas, it's a foregone conclusion. But it was kind of interesting to hear other people push back, against Seattle and Las Vegas, but especially Seattle. And it's typically your Stephen A's idiot types who, because they can go strip clubs and do all this kind of stuff. Well, where are we choosing Nashville? You got a team in Memphis, and you got to right what happened in Seattle, the wrong. Las Vegas, yeah, it makes sense, but I could see, somebody else making an argument that says no, there's enough in Las Vegas. But the fact that Las Vegas has become an instant sports town, the problem is that when you think of other cities after Nashville, I mean, who are you going to give a team to really at this point? Right? That's a city that's legit. Outside of maybe, going to Mexico City or something like an international team, but I can't really think of any domestic cities that, are NBA level, and especially when you got, I don't know, crappy franchises, as somebody said. Can you fix the bad franchises first or take them away and award them to a Seattle, Las Vegas? We've brought that argument up in the past. I just think it's kind of interesting to see it come back right now. And the first time, I'm really hearing a lot of pushback, especially about Seattle. Well, I'm like, what do you have against Seattle? Didn't Seattle just show you winning the Super Bowl? The revival of the Mariners. It's a great sports town, and bringing the Sonic love back would be all time. And you figure with Vegas, it's going to be a star-studded team as well, Celebrity Row, so that's going to be good too. So I don't know what people are complaining about. Other than the peanut galleries, need a reason to complain about something, right? Okay. Gotta love the Chief, because the Chief, we talk about Robert Parrish. And, LeBron, I think, just passed his record for most games. Yeah, another empty calories standard that LeBron has. But it's not empty calories, but it's just like, who gives a what? He's Chief, always outspoken and speaks his mind, basically talking about load management, saying it's a disgrace and that these mofos should be embarrassed for themselves. Taking the check, but as Clay Davis says, I'll take anybody's fool's money if they're gonna just throw it at me. And just seeing the old heads and the culture pushing back, that these old guys don't get it. Maybe they don't, but the thing is, they played between 77 and 82 games plus the playoffs. Warriors, as opposed to these guys who I've got to hang now. I think I'm going to take the afternoon off. Yeah. Need to hear from the Chief more often. Kind of concerned about this thing with Cade Cunningham. And speaking of load management, him having a collapsed lung, and they don't know how long he's going to be out of the lineup. Already see that team wobbling a little bit as far as its lofty perch that it stands on in the East. So keep an eye on that, especially with Boston balling with Mr. Tatum back in the house. It's kind of interesting how the Bucks wanted to load manage, or not even load manage, but basically shutter Giannis for the rest of the season, and he doesn't want that. And it's just like, hey, we might suck, but I want to be out there. I don't see this partnership with Giannis and that team lasting beyond this year. And if it does, the next year is probably going to be a complete sea of misery as far as these entities are concerned. Mm-hmm. Ant-Man is going to miss maybe a week to 10 days with knee soreness. I see that more as load management, kind of freshening him up for the playoffs is what I see there. Okay, let's go around the loop. I mean, the Spurs, dude, what is up with them? I mean, what are they like 20-2 in their last 22 games or something crazy like that? Let me see here. Make a quick adjustment here on the fly as we're in the process of revamping our whole studio. Stay tuned for that. Things are really about to get gangster up in this bitch. But, that'll happen over the course of the next month as far as us going next level. Let me take a look here out of curiosity. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, you go Lakers are like 10-1 in their last 11. I think the Thunder have won 11 in a row. Not to mention, I don't know what happened with the Bucks the Hawks. Okay, they finally lost. They had won 11 in a row, but they lost last night. So you've got some teams that are really cooking in the month of March. I'll talk a little bit about the Lakers in a closer look because they're always fascinating. One of the things I don't get, every time I want to say something good about the Clippers, they always have one of these head scratching losses. And when you lose to like the tanking Kings, and the Kings are not even trying to win, and somehow you find a way to friggin' lose to them. Other thing about the Spurs just kicking so much ass. Isn't it crazy that this is like the first time they're going into the playoffs in like 6 years? Yeah. I'm kind of interested about this Hawks thing. Okay, so they're what, 11 out of their last 12? I think the last time I looked, they're currently 6th, which means they would face the New York Knickerbockers in the first round. And boy, do I already smell rotten fish in Denmark on that one. Gee whiz. Mm-hmm. 1973 might be a fact that's still intact. It could be done early. Okay. Let's see here. What else do we got here? Let's talk about the Tank Watch. You got the Wizards and Pacers both losing 10 in a row. I hope it's fun. Taking hard to get Darren Peterson, who already knows how to load manage. Oh man, I kid you not. It's far too much. Let me see something here real quick before I get to the next segment. Like I said, we're rearranging stuff here, so we're getting ready to do a major upgrade as far as how we deliver our content. Oh, wow. Duke is a tough one. Kind of interesting there, right? But dead air. This thing's just slow loading today. So I was looking at my computer, but I can't see that far. So I opened up my laptop, and it's taken me a second. Talk about amateur hour with the one-man crew, but we'll get there to what we need to do. Yeah. So I can see this better. Yeah, right. But the Celtics, okay, they're like 7-3 in their last 10. Interesting enough, Miami's 7-3. Charlotte, who I've been speaking of in the 10 spot, they're still playing well, 7-3 in their last 10. Just trying to see who else is moving around here. I mean, nothing really drastic, other than God, the Grizzlies. What are they like? 1-9. I'll put them in the tanking realm as well. I think it is interesting that the Warriors are 2-8 in their last 10, but really cemented in the 10th spot as far as the play-in is concerned, because there ain't no way that the Grizzlies and Pelicans are going to make up that kind of ground. But still, Without Curry, and I don't think they should bring him back. It is kind of a wobbly finish as far as that's concerned. Mm-mm-mm. Man, there's some teams really stinking it up back here. And there are some teams that I'm still keeping an eye on, like Phoenix at 7, the Clippers at 8, or Clippers at 9, and the Trailblazers at 8, as far as being interesting playing matchups and, could maybe make something happen in the first round or so. Okay, folks. Well, we are doing it real casual, doing the stroll in the park on a Saturday. When we return, we will come back and we will talk some beautiful game life on the other side. See you momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Foxtrotting in the Foxhole, episode 306. Okay, let's go pitch side and talk some beautiful game life. Unfortunately, real somber news here. John Gallus, former coach of Lane United, sporting director of Sporting Cascades, a prominent figure here in professional soccer, the Eugene area, and Oregon in general. The amount of outpouring of condolences and stuff globally, well-liked man. I only got to meet him briefly, but it was always nice to me as my brief interactions with him, and definitely one of the leaders of the tribe here as far as soccer in Oregon is concerned. Our condolences go out to his wife and his kids, all the family, his bro. Yeah, definitely a major loss for our community. All right. I talked about this on Aftershocks the other day about this whole thing with Morocco getting awarded the AFCON trophy. And it just makes so much sense. It makes so much sense to me, right? No, just kidding. And then seeing everybody flex on social media and talking trash about a title that was kind of awarded to you in a weird way. 2026, always given, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not sure if you can trust any of these federations at this point when it comes to chicanery. But I will give AFCON credit. They definitely have said, hold my beer, and have set a pretty good bar as far as shenanigans are concerned. All right. Big week in UCL. Do a little UCL roundup. Is now, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Boy, what a story that Bodo Glimt was for most of this Champions League competition. And you thought, okay, they're going to go to Lisbon. They had like a 3-goal advantage. It might be tough, but given how they had played in this competition, I did not see the 5-0 shellacking coming. I mean, gee whiz. After being, the darlings of the tournament, and to get swept out like that was kind of cruel. And you saw it on the faces of the Bodo Glimt players, but still, what an incredible run for them. PSG sweeping Chelsea out of Europe. Tough week for Chelsea. They lost to Everton today, I believe. Madrid chasing out Manchester City. But, we'll give the Gunners their flowers because they held up their end, and so did Liverpool. So it'll be Liverpool and PSG in the next round. That's going to be a titanic matchup. Obviously, Barcelona taking care of business, so that's all good. Same with Harry Kane and Bayern Munich doing what they do. I don't know what that's all about, but yeah, interesting as far as that goes. Looking forward to the next round. We'll break that down probably next week. We got a minute or two since we're heading on the international break too after this weekend. Over in CONCACAF, the big story there is LAFC advancing along with Seattle, and Inter Miami and San Diego both crashing out. Inter Miami losing on away goals. So somebody's going to get cranky there as far as why is CONCACAF one of the few federations that still institutes the away goals rule, which I don't have a problem with, but I guarantee you now that Messi is out of CONCACAF Champions League or Champions Cup, whatever the hell you want to call it, yeah, we have a feeling the away goals rule is not long for CONCACAF after this episode, especially because you're going to only get so many chances to highlight Messi in a major competition like this, as he slowly fades away. Yeah. Yeah, San Diego. I mean, it was too crazy how they came away, but they were down, 2 men at home in the first leg. And they were up by 3-2. And we were just like blowing all kinds of helium into, their heads and all that kind of stuff. And boy, did they come crashing back to earth. One of those, not so fast, San Diego. You ain't got big britches like this yet. Yeah. And then you had FC Cincinnati kind of crapping the bed. So a lot of interesting stuff as far as CONCACAF Champions Cup is concerned right now. MLS, kind of interesting that they are going to have the MLS Cup this year on a Friday night. Hoping not to be caught up in the big morass of college football playoff games, even though there'll probably be one they'll be going up against on Friday. I guess is the way the schedule aligns. But they feel this is the best way to possibly have a stage to showcase the championship, because it usually does fall on deaf ears in the big competitions that are going on in, the late fall. So I'm kind of excited about that. As far as what's going on in the pitch MLS is concerned, LAFC remain unbeaten. The Crew and Union continue stumbling out of the gate. Miami's been, we saw their struggles in CONCACAF, and they've been struggling a little bit in MLS as well. Not really off to the flying start, which is kind of a surprise because after the boys retired, it seemed like Miami fortified themselves. And hey, it's real early in the season, so I'm sure they're not cutting the groove they will be. We'll see what happens because after they come back from the international break, they'll be christening their new stadium in downtown Miami. So that might give them a lift. That'll be fun to see in the weeks to come. What else do we have here? I mentioned this earlier about Iran. They want to be in the World Cup, but they don't want to play any games in the U.S. because aren't they supposed to play a game in SoFi and maybe one in Texas? But they're saying that we don't want to boycott, but if we're going to participate, we don't want to be in the U.S. for obvious reasons. Stay tuned to see how that plays out. Gee whiz, somebody's going to get some grandstanding out of that. This you can be assured of. Kudos to all the people in Boston that the 30K that turned out for Boston Legacy's first game was a match with Gotham. Cool to see big crowds in Portland last night. I think they had like 22,000 for the opener. So ladies are packing them in. A lot of excitement stuff there. Denver as well. Fun time to be a domestic soccer fan, I'm telling you. In spite of us not having a team here in Eugene this year, but still. Okay, let's do a little global watch here. It's kind of interesting about Jesse March talking about his hiring process and basically saying the United States Soccer Federation, another federation, you can't trust these folks, basically did him dirty. Told him he had the gig and he didn't have it. This was after, I guess, Jurgen Klinsmann's departure, I believe. Yeah. So that is kind of interesting. So that probably continues to add spice as far as the Canada-U.S. rivalry, because you know he's going to be wanting to get up in our shit any chance he can get. Okay. And then we've got Mr. Neymar, always making news. You know, people are crying because Carlo Ancelotti, yes, that Carlo Ancelotti, now running the Brazil national team, didn't call him up. But why would he call him up, seeing that he can't play for Santos today, actually, because they're trying to load management, because the guy is the China doll of China dolls, even more than Anthony Davis is. I don't know how you could be, how it's even possible, but yeah, Neymar is succeeding in that. Speaking of injury snubs, this is going to hurt. You know, that Portugal is coming to stateside for some pre-World Cup friendlies, but there'll be no CR7. CR7's not in this next call-ups, and that kind of sucks for everybody that's laid down the hardcore deck that's hoping to see, you know, one of the best football of this generation, if not all time. You know, especially he's getting very long in the tooth as well. So anyway, I'm sure that when it's time for the World Cup, we will get no shortage of CR7. It's very cool to see that Zlatan, yeah, that's Zlatan, Mr. Ibrahimovic, joining the Fox crew for the World Cup 2026 broadcast team. You know that's going to be worth the price of admission, seeing that, man. Yeah. All right, folks. Well, that's what's happening pitch side. When we come back, we will talk some Nightfall of Diamonds. See you momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Kid Harlan here, churning and burning on a brisk Saturday in the Willamette Valley. We're giving you our weekly collection of takes and rants. So let's do some Nightfall of Diamonds, which means we gotta hop on the hippie bus to start things. Some interesting tidbits happening this week. Apparently, on my man, Silly Brings, he's not my man really, but everybody else is apparently. Billy Strings and King Gizzard doing a collaboration album. Ooh, boy, I can't wait to see what that turns up sounding like. Wow. Think about that, King Gizzard and Billy Strings. Yeah, we got Humphreys McGee coming to McDonald tonight, and I don't think I'm going to be there. What a party pooper. Yeah, kind of missing out on all kinds of things this week. But the Garcia Project was here at the WOW for 2 nights. And when I saw, what was it, the $35, $40 price tag, I'm thinking, man, at the time I didn't even pay that much to see the man when he was alive. 2026, always giving. Yes, in the world of the Disco Biscuits, the camps are still fighting. Those that want to support Marlon and those who are butthurt about Alan's departure and just not letting it go. Always fun stuff in the jam world. And of course, you know, there is really no news as far as what's happening with the dead nation, but I guess John Mayer is going to be on CBS Sunday morning, so maybe he'll drop some hints as to will there be something in the future, you know, as far as him spearheading it. I mean, I did try to tune into Graham Lesh and Friends, but I'm just like, British Petroleum on that one. Sorry, man. I mean, the ones when I did tune in, the one song that used to drive me crazy in the further days. I was just like, nah, man, this isn't happening. All right, dark star crashes, mirror shatters. Let's talk some baseball. It's a real life fall of diamonds. Jackson Profar loses his appeal for the PED ban, so this is a second violation, so he will miss all 162 games. Naughty, naughty boy. So interesting, people having his back in this whole process. And like, come on, man. I know your union's got to do what you got to do, but still, come on. And the fact that it was upheld means there was no chicanery. Obviously, the World Baseball Classic, as we talked about on Aftershocks, you know by now that Venezuela ended American dreams of superiority, and the probable boost that MLB could have gotten may not happen. Nonetheless, the ratings were historic. No shock there. I mean, I still thought the tournament could have had a little bit more pizzazz, but in the end, it was pretty cool. We saw some great storylines. And Venezuela winning it, given everything that's happened there in this past year or so, fantastic for the folks there. Obviously, Mr. De La Rosa is catching all kinds of strays because when you are not successful in this world, yeah, there's going to be a fall guy, and it's going to be him. But I do like that everybody that was into the WBC, seemed to have some genuine enthusiasm about it. And, it's just unfortunate the USA didn't get it done. But I was so hoping after, I was watching multiple things. I was watching LAFC. And then, and Harper hit that 2-run blast to tie the game. I was just like, oh, shit, we might have a moment. But that moment was not to be. Okay, Japan obviously getting knocked out by the eventual champion Venezuela. So that meant we get to see the first taste of Ohtani wearing Dodger blue for 2026, and he looked pretty sharp on the mound. He saw what he did in the WBC. Now he's out here firing, and everybody keeps asking, is Shohei just gonna have one of these years where he hits 50 home runs and wins a Cy Young? I mean, think about that kind of nonsense and how unfathomable that would have seemed at the beginning of this decade, where now we're saying, I could see this possible. I don't know wear and tear wise if he would get that many appearances, but you never know what Shohei wants to do. It's going to be fun watching nonetheless. And this is one of these ones where you get to push back on the culture, right? And this is the angry culture. We were talking about that with SJ Gets Down. We'll see if that episode ever sees the light of day. Hopefully it does. But anyways, ESPN's in its revised package, they're going to air games on Mondays and Wednesdays, which is cool that baseball's not leaving the ESPN family of networks. So why Coach JB and all you other folks who were screaming and yelling because they decided to make Sunday night women's sports night, especially with ESPN still retaining baseball, they're just shuffling it around and it's going to be on, baseball's going to be on NBC. What was the big deal? What was the screaming and yelling about? This is another moment of the wussification of our sports world. And I was like, nah, I think you guys are overreacting. And sure enough, you were. Now, I talked earlier this week about the Dodgers selling the naming rights to Dodger Stadium, which is still... I get it, like I said the other day, but it's still something hard to digest. Wow. Hey, it's all about the brand. You got to pay for this shit somehow, even with the deep pockets that Dodger ownership has. And I think it is confirmed that we are going to have a Barry Bonds sighting on opening day. He's going to be part of the Netflix package, working the studio desk, and this is probably going to get some eyeballs in the same way that Not in the same way, because, Jordan, like I said, Jordan walks on water. But I think Barry being, such a lightning rod for so many reasons, and we really don't get to hear much from him, kind of in that exile that the the tainted ones seem to fall under. So this probably is going to be some pretty cool TV to watch, right? And at this point in time, I would love to see, if Barry's going to be keep it real. Probably won't, but you never know. But nonetheless, that might be one more reason to keep Netflix a little bit longer, just so I can see how this plays out. And then we have the rare cards thing once again, and this never ending fascination that people have with these rare cards. So apparently, there's a one of a kind combo of Shohei and Judge. And this card just sold at auction for $2.16 million. Like the weirdo from Shark Tank walking around with his $19 million Kobe and Jordan card. I just don't understand. Okay, Honus Wagner, fine. The T206, as I've said many times before, I get okay. But for some of this contemporary stuff, and I just said, what kind of historic stuff that Shohei's possible of, but still, $2 million. Speaking of Aaron Judge, boy, what a beating he's been taking as far as the memes are concerned. His failure on big stages, and obviously the World Baseball Classic being another one of those moments where homie didn't necessarily have a full wallet. And yeah, the baseball peanut galleries and meme creators are definitely making that point clear in terms of his success on the big stages. You can hit a whole lot of home runs and hit for average and all this stuff, but you don't deliver when it matters, is what they're saying. Well, Mr. Judge, you're in the batter's box once again. Let's see how you do. All right, folks, we are galloping along. When we come back, we will do a closer look as we continue to wind this down. See you momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chilling like a funky cold Medina, whatever that means. Yeah, where are we going now? Let's see here. A closer look. That segment where we editorialize, opinionate, rant, all that good stuff. Okay, where are we going this week? Yeah, let's have a little fun. Let's call this first bullet point, hating on LAL. The Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah, those Los Angeles Lakers. This is always an interesting one as somebody who has been a big fan of this team since the early 70s and has seen lots of ups and some downs, with this particular franchise. I think it's interesting that they're cooking. I had mentioned it in the NBA beat. They were what? 11 out of 12, I think it is. Probably along with the other teams that are cooking right now in the East and West. And it's so interesting that people are so quick to hate on them and not give any credit. I know that part of it's LeBron, but part of it's Luka, and another part of it's Austin Reeves, and then another part of it is the flawed roster construction. But it's like everybody thinks this team is fool's gold. Even though when you watch them play, you're seeing them actually defend. You're actually seeing the philosophy that JJ Redick has been trying to transmute meant to this team, over the course of his 2 seasons being at the helm there, really starting to come to fruition. And yet, everybody goes out of their way. I mean, Charles Barkley, he's always going to hate. But everybody else, I was like watching, what's his face? Jay Skapnik, just like, no, dude, this is fool's gold. This is what they did last year when they got Luka. Don't you guys get it? Don't fall for the same thing. And that may be true because you start seeing teams that are really hot right now. But the question is, what have we got? 10, 12 games left? Are you going to be hot then when it really matters in the playoffs? Because everybody, in spite of how well the Lakers have played, have them as a one and done team. In spite of the fact that they beat Houston twice this week. I mean, friggin' Luka had 60 and, against the Heat. And everybody was like, hey, sorry, Bam, this was legit. What you did wasn't, which I'm all completely, 2,000% with. But I'm thinking, Luka's cooking. LeBron has settled in to being the secondary person that carries a lot of the water, but it's not the focal point. Austin Reeves doing that voodoo that he does, and you're getting good minutes from the supporting cast. Guys like Marcus Smart and Hashimura and the kid they got who actually can shoot. I just think it's funny because no matter what happens with this team, people are just gonna sit there and hate, and that's probably a good thing for the NBA. My question is, the Celtics, who have one more ring than the Lakers, and with Jason Tatum still acclimating himself to being out all that time with his injury, how come nobody's saying they're fool's gold? And why nobody doesn't believe in them when I think right now, in spite of what happened the last time those two teams played, I think the Lakers would wipe the floor with them right now, to be honest. But yet the Lakers are fool's gold, and somehow the Celtics, which at any point could probably get exposed in these playoffs, or not, because I will admit, 10 days or so, I was like, they might be my favorite to kind of steal this one. But then all the teams in the West really started to ignite. And I'm just thinking, I don't know if Boston's going to be able to take down any of these badass teams in the West, right? When it comes to the Lakers, though, I'm thinking they could, if they continue to play like they are now, I could see them beating Minnesota, Denver, or Houston. I don't know about San Antonio or Oklahoma City. If that probably is a bridge too far. All right, let's flip the script here. Let's get to the Queens. You knew I gotta bring up those Queens, as I talked about on the other day in Aftershocks. That the deal is done. We got a better idea now of what it's framed. All kinds of interesting takes out there. You gotta get right. Give Rachel Demita her flowers. What's the guy? Keep the View, I think it's called. That brother is good. And the other guy that has been chronicling all of this. Great insights during all of this. And, there is a mixed view. Some folks are doing the victory lap. Others are sitting there giggling, saying the owners and Commissioner Silver and Kathy Engelbert made fools of you all. You all are acting like you're some badass bitches on the block when you really didn't get much, which is not true, because the fact that they're going to be making a lot of more money than they were, and there's lots of options for them to make even more money as the years come, if the numbers and popularity continue to elevate, and that's something that's really good for that league. The question is, how does Caitlin Clark fit into this? Because none of this is possible without her. I don't know whether it's true, half the shit, as far as Angel Reese flapping her gums about how it's her presence that's making this happen, when it's like, bitch, it has nothing to do with you, man. It's all Caitlin Clark. And you all seem to not like her. And I'm just wondering, how is the league going to keep or protect their golden goose? and make sure she's always on the floor because that's what people care about. During FIBA, I told you the other day about how the ratings just crushed Unrivaled. So whatever Miss Collier and B Stu are saying about their jive ass league, what you just saw in FIBA just tells you everything when it comes to Caitlin Clark and how everybody just has this collective wood when it comes to her. As I said the other day on Aftershocks, and what's happened, since I've dropped that episode, as far as the debates and conversations being framed around her. Yeah, it's so wild. And given what we saw in her first 2 years and the outcry, I mean, you have the guy from God, was it Iowa, who wanted to have a congressional investigation on her treatment. So all I'm saying there is get ready for some more shenanigans. And now that they've all gotten paid somewhat, they can all sit there and run around, and Cameron Brink doesn't have to worry now about keeping her $7,000 a month personal chef. It's going to be fun because the one thing that has to happen, I do feel, is that they have to keep this momentum going. That Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese and a few others are part of that momentum as well. But as we know, it's Caitlin Clark. How do you keep that momentum going so you can get paid again when it's time to discuss? And that is going to be one of the more fascinating things to watch in this window coming up. Now that we're past all the wrist ringing, all the flexing and acting tough, they can get back to playing basketball, and there's all kinds of weird stuff already in play because now, they have to get the whole league year going on fast forward. And with the expansion draft, I'm hearing Sophie Cunningham may not be protected. Don't know. They're going to break up Tres Leches. That can't happen. Or they'll find a way to keep her in the fold. Who knows? But yeah, that would be quite a story to kick off the WNBA year because, I got to keep Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, right? As far as protecting Caitlin Clark and giving her a chance to actually win a title. Yes, but even if you think they got their ass kicked or you think, it's girl power, empowerment on overdrive, the cool thing is the ladies are returning to the court and we're all for it, and we're looking forward to all the great storylines that are going to come out from that league, good or bad, as far as 2026 is concerned. All right, folks, we're churning and burning here in the Foxhole. When we return, we'll get you out of here with the NFL report and some TMCA time on the other side. See you momentarily. Excuse me, folks, for the loud cough. Ooh. Gee whiz, that came out of nowhere. Alrighty, just kind of sitting here, chilling. Just got myself a nice new lid. Feeling good after the win. You can imagine what that lid might be at a very discounted rate. So we're kind of excited about that. Okay, let's get rolling here and close you out and give you back part of your weekend. That's when you're consuming this, or your early part of the week. The NFL report, man, it's kind of interesting with Mark Davis. He's linked with all these starlets. Like I told you, he's been living his best life. Got that Vegas NFL money, living like a kingpin. And now apparently there's a succession plan Because we had to think at some point with the greedy NFL and the way Dan Snyder was ran out of the league, they probably have looked at Mark and said, hey, let's find a suitable arrangement here. Because we're under your watch, we're squandering this wonderful opportunity that moving from Oakland to Las Vegas has brought the league. So keep an eye on that, you know. Or maybe he's just too busy enjoying his best life and it's just like, I got the aces. I'll probably sell them too, live in my mansion and have hot young babe girlfriends all the time. Sure, why not? Why the hell not? Okay, what else do we have going on? I see the Browns, the Cleveland Browns, are proposing a rule that will allow teams to be able to trade draft picks 5 years out. Basically, like you can become the NBA. I don't have a problem with it. Whatever the case may be, it creates more storylines and discussions and what ifs. Do you think it's interesting that Kelsey got banned in Nevada today? So we'll have to look into that in the coming days, what that means as far as being able to put on sports futures on that platform. Greedy NFL, because they say that they're playing a Thursday night game, but what is it, in Down Under or is it in Latin America? I can't remember where. I think it's Melbourne. That they need to have a Wednesday game, which is just another excuse for you to continue your quest to own every day of the week with your product. The greedy NFL just never, like Neil Young, rust never sleeps. I also think it's interesting that there is a possibility, because this is another CBA that is unresolved. This is the NFL referees. And there may be replacement refs as the league is already looking into it. We've been down this road before, and I would have to say that, like last time, the replacement refs, they can't be any worse than the current slop that we have right now. The outcome's pretty much going to be the same. There's going to be the same messed up shit that there's always been. Might even be good. We'll stay tuned for that. I wish we'll say, I know it's interesting that Justin Fields, Mr. Fields Cookies, is on the move again. This time going to KC. And as we said the other day, can a move to Andy Reid's system really get this guy's career where it needs to be? Or is he going to be another Ohio State quarterback, as I said on Aftershocks the other day, that ends up being a buster? Time will tell. And that same thing I said the other day about Dolphins acquiring Mr. Waddle from Miami, and how much that's going to put a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert. Giving Bo Nix another viable weapon. Yeah, Denver could be scary. And Sean Payton, he didn't like the way last year ended. He still got a sour taste in his mouth. And another thing I've been also talking about a lot with the Vikings bringing Carson Wentz back into the fold. I don't know what that means for J.J. McCarthy's future. It would seem ridiculous that you maneuvered to get him and you've already closed the book. I mean, I don't know, unless as people have said on TV this week, if you can get a big haul for him, yeah, that's a possibility. But otherwise, I'm just not, I ain't feeling that. No sirree. I think it's also interesting that the Eagles are adding Hollywood Brown to their receiver room. Oh, man. Nick Sirianni and Howie and company, they sure do like their mercurial characters up in that bitch. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, A.J. Brown is still on the roster, so... And Jalen Hurts is still unloved, apparently. Yeah, it should be an interesting 2026 in the city of brotherly love. Also, the thing going around about Mike Evans left Tampa Bay to go to San Francisco. GM says no hard feelings. He just doesn't understand that we had more money on the table to stay with us than to go to San Francisco. Well, that just made me think. And it made me think this. If you're willing to leave a team that's pretty solid with a good quarterback in Baker Mayfield, whatever Todd Bowles' situation is, you looked around the room and said, "No, we ain't winning shit with these bitches. I'm outie. I'm outie 5,000. I'll take less for a chance of getting a ring," which speaks volumes as far as where the Buccaneers are right now. Yeah, it's a rough world, ain't it? Back to the Eagles, them trading for Andy Dalton, obviously to be a backup to Jalen Hurts, it proves an undeniable truth. If you have any modicum of skills to play quarterback in this league, hold a clipboard, do mop-up duty, emergency duty after injuries, you will be able to continue to collect paychecks for as long as you need to. As I just mentioned Carson Wentz a second ago. I just think it's laughing like Andy Dalton getting another. He's going to go collect some more money. Good for him. And then you've got Troy Aikman, who's been a consultant for the Dolphins. Hold on one second. All right. I had a coughing fit there. Troy working for a consultant for the Dolphins. And I think he liked that experience and he wants to stay on, and you get the sense you're seeing what his next move may be. Obviously Brady's doing it, but I get the sense that maybe Troy's not going to want to be in the booth forever. He already seems bored to me, but being an executive and trying to build a winner, I think that's what is lighting his embers. No, keeping his embers lit, I should say. So we shall see as far as that goes. All right. The trucks from the foundry have rolled up. Yes, indeed. The trucks from the foundry that contain the stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties. That come in complimentary, regular, and XL sizes for those whose actions during the week have earned that distinction, or as we like to say, them being who they be. It is TMCA time in the Foxhole. Consult the Wire, Tommy Carcetti episodes. You know what I mean when it talks where I got the inspiration for the TMCA bowls. So obviously we're gonna start out. I gotta give Bruce Pearl 2 more for being in the storyline far too much this week when it never should be that much about you, especially at this point. Your Nepo baby kid and in the dog poo-poo program that it turned into this year. Enough already. And then talking both sides of your mouth. I gotta give Dan Dakich a XL. He's on the Outkick Pro platform. You played for Bobby Knight and, kind of has that Clay Travis kind of perspective. That's why he's on the Outkick platform. But, taking swipes at Cart Kellogg and others, like they have no credibility. What the fuck is your credibility, bro? And gonna get salty with everybody. Nah, man, your tea ain't that sweet, baby. I gotta give this kid from Bama, the guard that got suspended on the eve of the tournament, Aiden Holloway, got busted for like 2 pounds of pot. So I'm gonna give him an XL. Because at this point, bro, if you're in a state where it's not legal, why don't you have one of your groupies or homies holding the stash? If it's not legal in your state, that means the heat can come down on you, even if you're a baller. Because NHO Day, as Joe Strummer once said. Yeah. Speaking of down that way, a little bit further, down in Florida way. How about Florida State kicker Connor? What is it? McGaney, McGaney, or whatever it is. Sometimes I get these names butchered. Anyways, you see that brawl he had with the cops? What are you thinking, going thug life and thinking you could take out a whole posse of cops? Yeah, that mugshot didn't look too good. You know, they like took you on the back lot and turned you into a pinata. Okay, one for the Hall of Shame and complimentaries all around for whatever bots or clowns who once again trying to get the internet in a frizzy, especially when it comes to the old school football fans and telling them that now it's Mean Joe Green who is dead and who Mean Joe Green is very much alive Joe Green. Man, why do you folks get out of generating this kind of nonsense? And people still fall for it every time. And these guys have to come out there, you know. Hey, maybe they're in on it too to get more engagement, but I doubt it. I just think it's just, you know, the algorithms are just so weird when it comes to this sort of thing. And it's just so negative. Okay. I'm going to give AD2, which is Anthony Drummond. He did the shooting gun gesture the other night, and he just got a $25K fine. Bro, you know the shooting gun gesture, the slash throat gesture, all that stuff was a no-no. If you're going to just be a fool and throw your money away like that, send it to the Foxhole. We'll go out and buy some more badass gear and set up, you know, a studio and do rock and cool stuff. Otherwise, why are you just giving your money to Mr. Silver? I got another one for the Hall of Shame and and 3XLs for this Texas summer camp director who got caught embezzling his 7 figures from his, you know, this is a camp for kids in Texas. And a lot of the money was being spent on OnlyFans subscriptions. Yeah, do the math and use the imagination on that one. Oh boy, I gotta give this guy, comedian, what is it, Mark No Man, who was on, I think it was it Speak Easy, or was it it probably was Uncle Shay Shay and Ocho Cinco's podcast. He was taking a jab at Sizzle, you know, making some jokes about Sizzle and having her lips resemble Travis's ex, who happens to be a sister. Yeah, you don't want to come at that hive. And yeah, the Swifties definitely ain't having any of that, man. It's like, maybe this helps your engagement. I don't think so. And this complimentaries all around for this one. All the people that got salty here in Eugene last week about a big party in the university district. You know, I think a neighborhood that's kind of lost its luster as everything's kind of turned into high rises and efficiencies for the deep pocketed. But that said, I'm like, isn't that reminds me of old school Eugene? Well, old school for me at least. And just what's supposed to happen in college towns. You're supposed to take over a block. Sure, the cops got to push back and put a few people in bracelets and restore order, but all these people that were just getting irate on social media about it last week, I thought that was pretty silly, I must say. Mm-hmm. And lastly, I gotta go with this chick, Taylor Frankie Paul. Gonna give her 2XLs. How do you let a video of you involved in a DV event surface after you're getting ready to do a season of the Bachelorette, which is already in the can? They're just like, no, we're pulling the plug. You know, well, we're so easy to cancel anything at this point that doesn't look right. And that's some bad optics there for sure. I mean, I thought the whole Mormon wives thing was kind of creepy anyways, but hey, It sells, but this apparently ain't selling. And that's why she gets some TMCA time this week. Okay, folks, obviously my voice is giving out here at the end, which is probably a good thing that I step away from the mic. As always, keep an eye out for Aftershocks 037 Tuesday or Wednesday, or maybe sooner, depending on what the inspiration is. We'll try to get this back out on Friday on its regular schedule. We'll see how that goes. And we've been really busy this week, which is kind of good as far as doing content and other stuff. And like I said, we've got some serious upgrades to all of this. They're slowly in progress. Yeah, I would say the next 3 or 4 months in the Foxhole going to be interesting times. Definitely game-changing stuff. Till then, you know the drill. Enjoy some adult beverages. Enjoy plenty of good food, friends, feast when you can. Definitely avoid the bracelets. You gotta stay safe. Definitely stay sane. Do it all with a smile on your face, and we will see you soon enough in the Foxhole. Peace, y'all.